Hello, and thank you for volunteering with Macmillan. During this unprecedented time, when unable to provide face-to-face support to people living with cancer due to the threat of the virus COVID-19. People living with cancer have been advised to go into a period of isolation as they are particularly vulnerable to the effects of the virus. This can be a lonely time for those at additional risk to COVID-19 and unable to leave the house. People living with cancer during this national crisis tell us they need support to feel less isolated and lonely, and Macmillan is responding by creating a national befriending service over the phone. By keeping in touch with someone over the phone during the coming weeks, you'll be making sure that they have someone to talk to listen, and to signpost them to key information at this difficult time. The expectations are very similar to those for face-to-face emotional support volunteering. What you and the person you support should expect: that you will treat one another with respect, that you won't call each other outside of the times that you agree, that you will not give or receive either money or gifts, that you will contact Macmillan if you feel the relationship is not working, and that you as a volunteer must follow Macmillan policies. So what's outside the boundaries of the role? Well, you don't give or provide counselling or therapy. You don't provide medical advice. And don't exchange your personal phone number with the person you support. And don't agree to any face-to-face support yourself. If the person you're speaking to has identified a practical support need, please highlight that to your volunteer manager. You'll still need to complete an activity report after each call for reporting purposes. But instead of selecting the number of sessions provided face-to-face box, you should select number of sessions provided by phone, as shown here. If you have any questions about how to record your activity, please chat to your volunteer manager. As part of your role, you should check the Macmillan guidance on COVID-19 and cancer each week. This can be found at macmillan.org.uk/coronavirus. There's a lot of information here that you can read and signpost someone you're supporting to. It's important to only look at reputable sources of information. So the key areas of guidance for you to review regularly on the Macmillan site are the sections on cancer and coronavirus and the Macmillan guidance for volunteers. So now let's look at making the calls. We'd like to share some top tips because it's all about preparing ahead of time. So first, find a suitable place. Whether you're calling from the comfort of your home or at your desk, you want to try and keep background noise to a minimum and check for a good phone signal too. Let the phone ring. Sometimes, due to ill health, it can take a while for the phone to be picked up, so be prepared to wait or call back after a few minutes. Don't multitask. Be present and be in that moment. Try not to be thinking about previous conversations you've had or what you're going to have for dinner. And when you're dialing, well, if you have a Macmillan issued phone available to you, use that to call the person you support. Or if you're using a personal phone, dial 141 before you dial the number. And this ensures that your number is not displayed and is not traceable with the 1471 service. On Android devices, you may have to go into settings. Building rapport over the phone can feel more daunting. However, with a bit of preparation, you'll be fine. First, we suggest writing down a few topics that you could use to break the ice, whether that be the weather or hobbies, TV shows you enjoy. Don't feel silly talking about easy topics, as this will help you get started. Your first few calls are all about getting to know one another, and soon you'll feel comfortable to talk about the bigger topics. Secondly, ask questions to get to know them. Use your listening and responding techniques as they begin to chat. And thirdly, for that positive attitude, try smiling when you're on the phone. It instantly makes you sound more enthusiastic, which will help you both relax into the call. You may be familiar with this supportive conversation model from a previous volunteering role, especially if you've given emotional support face-to-face with Macmillan. This is always a great base for your conversations, and you may remember it from your training. So here's a quick refresher then on listen, support, explore and empower. In active listening, we're trying to understand the situation from the speaker's point of view. In your volunteer role, you will demonstrate active listening by putting your own aims for being there to one side and giving the service user as much time as they need. Listening by definition isn't a natural process. It refers to paying attention, remembering and understanding the content of what the speaker has said. It's about giving them space to talk. Support is about acknowledging the issues the person affected by cancer has highlighted and summarising them to help the person reorder their thoughts or when you want to check your own understanding. The explore part of the supportive conversation model is about reviewing what steps the service user has taken already and discussing what else is available to them. Empower. The empower part of the model is about acknowledging and respecting that they are the ones who are in charge of their situation. This can be really important for people affected by cancer, many of whom have told us that they sometimes feel as if cancer has taken over their lives and they've lost control. It can be especially important to focus on empowerment when you're coming to the end of your relationship with a service user. So now let's think about how to make sure this is a safe and meaningful experience for both you and the person you're supporting. As part of your volunteering, we ask you to take steps that safeguard both you and the person you're supporting and will help you to maintain healthy boundaries and confidentiality. So a reminder on these. If you have a Macmillan issued phone available to you, use that to call the person you support. If you're using a personal phone, then dial 141 before the number. This will ensure your personal number will not be displayed on a mobile. It will appear as private or withheld, and it also ensures that you're not traceable with 1471. So if you're using an Android device, you may have to go into the settings to hide your number. Never share your number with the person you're supporting, with their carer, their family or their friends. Be mindful of the information you share. For example, the name of the school your children attend, the company you work for. And think about just using first names because it's amazing how small the world can be. Now, volunteers are obliged to let Macmillan know if they're worried about someone's welfare. For example, if the person you support is in danger or discloses abuse, you must contact your volunteer manager and or the Macmillan safeguarding team. The safeguarding team numbers are there for you on the slide. If you're worried about the person you're supporting, you must let someone know as soon as possible. Usually you should contact your volunteer manager first, but sometimes you'll need to make a judgment on who best to contact. So here's a guide to help. If the situation is an emergency that it needs immediate help, please call 999. If the situation is important but doesn't need immediate help, then we have a safeguarding team at Macmillan who you can always contact for support. Please also inform your volunteer manager to let them know you've had to contact safeguarding directly or if any emergency has arisen. If you do ever have any concerns about the safety of someone you're supporting, then we'd absolutely want you to raise this. If possible, contact your volunteer manager or Macmillan safeguarding team first. Sometimes you may feel that it is an emergency, and in that case, phone 999. It's impossible to list everything that could be emergency, but as a guide, the type of events that must be reported immediately are an accident or an illness requiring immediate hospital treatment, an incident involving the police, ambulance service or fire brigade, the threat of suicide or self-harm by a service user, the threat of or evidence of harm to others, concerns regarding current abuse or harm of a service user or another person associated with them, information that a crime has been or is about to be committed. One of the wonderful things about our volunteers is that they're personable, approachable and friendly individuals, and that's what makes them so good at offering support like this. We've already shared tips on how to build rapport, and that's key to offering meaningful emotional support. Sometimes, as you build a befriending relationship with the person you're supporting, it can be harder to see when the lines between a befriending role and being a friend start to blur. So it's vital that you, as a volunteer, maintain boundaries. If you're finding this hard, or if you think a boundary has already been crossed, then talk it through with your volunteer manager. They are there to help. So in this section, we're going to run through some scenarios that can happen when boundaries are not maintained. So what we'd like you to do is to press pause, read through each scenario, and then make some notes about what you could do in these situations. In a couple of these scenarios, the boundaries have already been overstepped. So we'd like you to think about what the potential consequences could be. What could the volunteer have considered or done differently? And what would you have done? And then what steps could the volunteer take now? So we ask you to jot down your ideas and thoughts about each scenario, and then you can chat through your answers and questions you might have with your volunteer manager the next time that you speak. So let's get started with the first scenario. When speaking to the person you're supporting, you realise that her daughter is at school with your daughter. So do you tell her? And if not, why not? So think about what the potential consequences could be, what you would do, what steps could the volunteer take now. So press pause to jot down a few ideas. In the second scenario then, volunteer Maggie gives her number to Christine, who is nervous of unknown numbers. Later that week, Maggie receives a call from Christine's neighbour Sheila. Christine had told Sheila over the fence that Maggie's supporting her, and she'd shared Maggie's number for emergencies. Sheila is also self-isolating due to having COPD, and she asks Maggie if she'd mind calling her as well, as she's lonely. An hour later, Maggie gets off the phone to Sheila. What should she do? So again, press pause and think about the potential consequences. What could the volunteer have considered or done differently? What you would have done, and what steps could the volunteer take now? In this third scenario then, while chatting to Stuart, volunteer Derek realises that Stuart lives on the route of his dog walk. Stuart lives alone, and he's struggling to get an online delivery slot as he's not over 70. So Derek offers to drop round some milk, some bread and some veg. Stuart's really grateful and says he'll give Derek the money when he knocks. So what could the consequences be here, and what should Derek do? So press pause and take a couple of moments to jot down your ideas. In this fourth and final scenario then, volunteer Kimberly is supporting Desiree. They prefer to use WhatsApp over voice calls. It's what they'd use with friends, and it means they can chat throughout the day. They can see each other's numbers, but they're both comfortable with that. Desiree's talked about feeling anxious about COVID-19, her cancer treatment potentially being delayed, and she's scared her gran might get sick. One night, Kimberly's woken at 3 o'clock in the morning by a message from Desiree. She's feeling really low, and she's decided to stop taking her medication. What should Kimberly do now? So again, press pause and jot down your thoughts and ideas. Just like our face-to-face emotional support schemes, each match is only expected to last up to about 12 phone support sessions, usually weekly. Some matches may end sooner than this, as situations can change. Your volunteer manager will support you to prepare for bringing your support match to a close. Both you and the person you support may have feelings of regret, loss or sadness at the end of the relationship, and those need to be acknowledged and managed in a positive way. For this reason, endings should be planned to give all parties sufficient time to deal with their feelings. You and your volunteer manager or lead volunteer may need to look at what else is available to help the person you support in their local community, or you may want to refer them on to another Macmillan service. Alternatively, you may find that whilst your support has been invaluable, the person you support is now able to move on. Even though it may feel difficult, it's really important that these support relationships are finite and that they do end. It's one of the ways that Macmillan looks after the well-being of both volunteers and those receiving support. While your support match will, hopefully, feel friendly, it's important to remember this is a support-based relationship, not a friendship. So once the sessions have drawn to an end, in keeping with data protection laws, make sure you don't have the number of the person you're supporting noted anywhere. And if you do, ensure you destroy this after your final call. Macmillan does not expect you to stay in contact with the person you've been supporting after the agreed number of sessions have been completed. We know that most people volunteering with us have many other things already happening in their lives, work, family, health, and that's before we even think about the wider picture around the COVID-19 pandemic and the anxiety that that can bring. It's important to try and keep a good work, volunteering life balance. We want you to feel happy about and to get energy from your volunteering. It shouldn't become something you feel gets you down. So it's vital that you look after yourself and your own well-being if giving support to others. Sometimes listening and supporting people who we might be worried about or who are in tough situations can leave us feeling upset or emotionally drained. Speak to your volunteer manager if you're finding things difficult or if you need to take a break. There are also specific resources available for volunteers that you can access in order to support and maintain your own well-being. You can contact our Employee Assistance Programme for 24-hour support. This is available for staff and volunteers via the confidential free phone number, via your mobile, via the Health eHub app, or you can do it via the Health Assured website. The username is Macmillan and the password is support. Also check out the Macmillan Volunteering Facebook page. You've got the Macmillan support line 0808 808 0000. You've got the Macmillan online community at community.macmillan.org.uk. And you've also got Mind, the mental health charity website, which offers information support at mind.org.uk, or breathingspace.scot if you live in Scotland. Thank you. You are helping to make a real difference to people living with cancer during the COVID-19 pandemic. Contact your volunteer manager to let them know you've completed this learning resource and ask any questions you have about your volunteering.